All right, I want to talk about the OllyDbg project. So that is the first one here, simple exe hacking. All right, so you just have to download Olly and run it. Runs on Windows. And I've already done it through my cloud machine here. So here's a cloud machine, just like the ones you're using. I don't need Jasmine anymore. Here's the instructions for Olly, but I'm just going to use Olly. And so I've installed it. Thought I could do it. It's going to be in my, maybe it's just in my downloads folder. Didn't put a shortcut on my desk. I guess it's just in my downloads folder. All right, let's try that. Yep, you just extract it and it just sits there. Okay. All right, so there's Olly. All right, and I don't have administrative rights. That's okay. I don't need them for what I'm doing. And maximizing the CPU window is the normal way you see Olly. So this is glorious OllyDbg, and now I need an executable to analyze. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use PuTTY. We're going to use a particular old version of PuTTY just because we want everyone to be using exactly the same file, because that way you can find the flags I expect you to find and so on. So I downloaded this thing already, putty.exe. And by the way, if you look at the instructions, I also have you verify the hash value, which is an important thing to have. Now, Microsoft Windows does not give you a hash calculator built into it, which is pretty unprofessional, even though it has that functionality for verifying signatures. So you have to download a third-party tool, and this is one of the free tools, HashCalc. And you can check this box and calculate the SHA-256 of the file you download and make sure you've got exactly the right file. And it should start with 9F9. And so let me just do that to make sure I've done the whole demonstration. Here's my HashCalc. I just downloaded and installed it. So there's HashCalc, and I checked this box for SHA-256. So now I can open my downloads, and in here I've got PuTTY, and there it is. And if I calculate that, it is indeed starting with 9F9. So the SHA-256 is fine, and I've got the right file. So I open that file here, putty.exe, and it loads. Now, when Olly loads the file, let me get this. I'll just do this. That'll do. All right. So the first thing to notice, let me make my window a little bigger there, is down here in the corner. By the way, a general rule for all these tools, they're designed for experts. So the part that's right in front of you is the baffling, complicated stuff that a beginner cannot understand. Beginners always want to look at the right and the bottom. That's where they put the stuff that is too boring for experts. Down here it tells me paused, that little yellow box. The program is not running. It has loaded itself in memory and stopped. So if I want to actually run the program, I have to hit the run button here. Now, here we have another annoying problem. This is 32-bit code, and I'm running on 64-bit Windows. So when I run it, it's going to launch the Windows on Windows environment and then stop again. So it's still not running. I have to hit run twice to get it going. Now it's running. It says running down there. So the first thing you do is look in the corner to get oriented. Now that it's running, it has opened another window here, and here's the PuTTY program running. So you can connect to a server with SSH, and you can use any server you want. One of mine is ad.samsclass.info. Just some server that's listening on port 22 is all that matters. So I open that. It's now connected. Now it says log in as, and it's waiting for me to give it a name and password to connect. And this is as far as I don't really care about the actual functionality of this program. I just want to find the code that prints out that message and mess with it. So I'm looking for the words log in as. So I go back to PuTTY, and I can find that code by right-clicking. Now, it matters what area you right-click in. So I right-click up here. This is the text section, which contains executable code. This is the stack, and that is whatever section has been dumped there. So you have to pay attention to what memory segment you're in. And you can right-click here and now do a search for all referenced text strings. This will give you not just all the strings, the way the strings command would, which is just any series of bytes that looks like a string. This is going to be strings that actually appear in an instruction as being used, like a print statement or something. So these are real strings that are actually used. And there they are. And there's a lot of them, error messages and such. So what I want to do is I want to find the login as message. So I search for text, I put in login as, and I check this box to search the entire scope. So I'm going to find that string, and I click OK, and it finds ASCII login as is stored at this location. So one is an address ending in 53, and I can then search next, and I'll find another one down here with an address ending in 6E. And if I search again, it's going to tell me there are no more. So there are only 2 of them. Now, I don't know which one of these was used to print that message. So to find out, I'm going to put breakpoints on them. So you right-click here at the login as, and you set a breakpoint. You're giving me trouble. I'm just going to search for text. Or now I found the first one. Now I should be able to right-click, toggle breakpoint. The F2 key will do it also. Now I can search next and toggle breakpoint, which somehow it's giving me trouble. Right-click. What's the story here? Push PuTTY. I'll use the F2 key. All right, that worked. For some reason, the right click was not working, but the F2 key worked. F2 key is the shortcut for it. So now I put breakpoints at both occurrences of login as, and I can find out which one of them is actually used. So I'm going to debug restart. I do this all the time. Every time I'm wandered around through a program and I get lost, I just restart it. It always whines and says you're going to terminate the process and lose stuff, but I don't care. So now it's going to relaunch the code and pause again. So it's not running. I have to run it and run it again. And now the window appears. Now I have to give it a name of a server that will answer, like one of mine, and then open. And now it's going to open this box and get ready to print the message and stop. And now I can see it's about to push that message here, ASCII login as. So it's just about to take that string and put it on the stack. And then this function here will call some function which apparently will print it to that little black box. So now I know which code is using it. It's CB6E. So this is the code I want to modify. If I modify this code, I'll modify that message. So now I want to get rid of the breakpoints. So it's window breakpoints, view breakpoints. They give view breakpoints. Okay, now I can delete the breakpoints, remove, and remove. Okay, so I got rid of them. Now here I am at CB6E. I can modify this instruction. This instruction pushes an address which points to this login as message. And by the way, I can follow it in the dump to see how it's stored. I can follow in dump immediate constant, which will be the address referred to by this instruction. So there it is. 467C7C is this address, and here it has values that are login as, and then a null space, and then a null terminator. So this is the actual string that's stored, and it pushed the address to the start of the string here, and then it calls some routine down here to print it. So if I change this address, instead of pointing to 7C to point to 7D, I'll cut the L off that message. So that's what I'm going to do. I right-click here, and then assemble. It will now let me change the instruction. So right now it's a push, 467C7C. I can just change that to a D and click assemble and then cancel. And now you see up here, now it's 7D. I've changed that 1 byte from a 7C to a 7D, and now it stands for login as. So I've now made a modified version of the program, and all I have to do is save it. Now, I had real trouble saving executable files from OllyDbg until I finally figured out what's happening. You can only save the changes to one memory section at a time. And so if you click down here and save, it's not going to get it. You have to go to this section you modified and right-click and copy to executable all modifications. Now, if you make several modifications in the file, it's not going to save them all. It's only going to save all of them in that segment. So if you don't want to go mad, just save the file after every one change, and then you'll actually be getting somewhere. If you make 3 or 4 changes and save it, you'll often find that it didn't really get all the changes. So I copy all modifications and copy all. And now I have a PuTTY.exe with that modified instruction in it. So I right-click here and save file. And now I'm going to call this PuTTY mod 2 because I made a PuTTY mod earlier. And this is the second time I've done it. So now I save it. And now I can close Olly. So now I have made a second program here. If I go to my downloads folder, I've got PuTTY, and here's PuTTY mod 2. And by the way, they are not the same, of course. So if I run hashcalc again, the original PuTTY has a hash of 9F9, but my PuTTY mod 2 has a hash of B31. So of course it's different. Now if I run this one and then connect to my server and say open, it now prints login as without the L. So I've now made the smallest of all possible modifications in my file, but now you've seen how to find the spot that's interesting, how to modify it, and how to save a revised file with the changes. By the way, a kind of fun thing to do is to realize this is actually signed code. And I would love somebody from Microsoft to explain this to me, because this makes no sense at all. If you go to the properties of PuTTY, there is a digital signatures tab here. And it tells you it's signed by Simon Tatum. And if you check the details, it will tell you that signature is okay. Now, this is a good thing to do. Code should be signed. That's fine. But why did it run this modified version? You're not allowed to modify signed code. That's the whole point of it. The signature is supposed to verify the hash. So what's going on with this PuTTY mod 2? Well, you go to properties, and it has a digital signatures tab. It says Simon Tatum, and if you click details, it tells you the signature is not valid. But it didn't tell me anything when I ran it. It just ran it. So you could totally put malware in the code and run it, and it would run, and the signature would not stop you. So there's something not making any sense about this to me. Why do you bother putting a signature on a file and detect a signature validation and then still let me run it? But anyway, that's what it does. So Microsoft is very mysterious. Anyway, so that's the basic operation of how to modify code in OllyDbg, and you've got a few things to do here. So first you do exactly that one, and then alters the login message. Now, so that's the one that just trims off one word, so you have login as. So now you can modify it again, and you can go down here and change the message in the data section. You can go where this stuff was stored, and you can change that to badness instead of login as, and save that. You have to change it exactly that way, and then you'll find the flag, which is the hash value of that modified file. So that's the CRC32 hash, just to make it short. And then there's more files to execute here, which are fun. Let's take a look at this 0001. This is good, clean fun. I'm going to copy the link address. I'm going to download it in my cloud machine. This was a challenge in a capture the flag contest that I did a few years ago. Easy CTF. Let's see, I think Control V. All right, it's irritating me. I'm just going to have to go find it here. If I go down here, there we go. All right, come on. Oh, that's right, I have to use this, not the mouse to get there. All right, so I'm going to get 000, and I'm going to save this file. All right, and so that's in my downloads folder. And so now I can mess around with this one in Olly. And this is a really nice one to learn with because it's designed to be simple. So I guess I'm not running Olly anymore. Got to launch it again. OllyDbg. All right. Now, I don't care about administrative rights. I'm going to open 000.exe. All right. So this program is so simple, the entire program is pretty small. And you can actually scroll through the code and read it. So if you just look in this column here, look for red text. I'm going to go down a page at a time. There we go. We should be able to find some readable code here. All right. I'm not finding good code, so I'm going to do it another way. I'm going to right-click and search for referenced text strings. And here I'm finding a bunch of boring junk. And all right, I'm getting pretty annoyed here. I wonder if I'm looking at the wrong thing. All right, let me go back to my instructions. I seem to have lost the thread here. Let's debug restart. Let's try running this. Let's just see if it'll run. And it did run, and it popped up a box. Okay, so there it is. And it looks like it's paused again, so now I got to run it again. And now if I go to that box, now it printed out the message, launch codes. That's what I wanted. So it prints out a message called launch codes. And when I give it a number like 11, it then says, I think my dog figured this out before you to insult me. So this is a game, and I have to guess the right value to launch codes. So now I have a string to look for, launch codes. So right here, and see, now I'm in the right part of the code. This is what I wanted to show you. This program is so simple, you can read it right here. So just ignore all the complicated stuff and look here. Here's a string called launch codes, and then it calls PuTTY, which is the C system library. So it prints this on the screen, it reads a decimal number from the user, and then under some conditions, it prints, wow, you got it. Here is the flag, I think is what's coming here. Let's move this over. Here's the result. It now prints out some kind of winning message. And otherwise, it prints, I think my dog figured this out before you. So we've got a game, and we could try to figure out how to win by finding the string here, but there's another way to win. We could just modify the game to make it easier to win. So let me look at my instructions and see which way I wanted you to do this first. It doesn't really matter. There's a lot of tricks. So now you have, this is, I think they wrote this in assembler, I'm thinking. Anyway, it's very simple. And so now we're just going to fill this with NOPs. So let's go there. From 34 to 30B, I want to fill it with NOPs. So here's how it works. Here's 34. Okay, so it reads something from the user, and then down here it does a compare. So it's comparing the input from you to something else. Whoops, something keeps moving on me. Right, well, I'll do debug restart, fine. And then run. Okay, now I've made it back to where I was. Something keeps moving on me. All right, so here we are. The point is, here it does a compare, and if under certain conditions, it will now jump down to 205A and print my dog figured out. So I don't want to do that. Now I could just change this jump not zero, but what I'm going to do is I want to print the winning message. So I'm just going to wipe out all this code. So let me just get my instructions to make sure I get it right. I want to go down to 3B. So I want to start at 34 and fill it with NOPs. So I'm going to assemble, and I'm going to change that to a NOP. And when I do, because that instruction was several bytes long, it turns into a lot of NOPs. And I want to keep going until I hit 3B, so I'm just going to keep hitting assemble. There. And now I don't do the comparison, and I don't do the jump. Instead, I just go here. So that should do it. Now I cancel. Now, I can run the patched file, save the patched file. We know how to save this file now. So right-click, copy to executable, all modifications, copy all. Here's the modified file with the NOPs in it. Now I right-click and save file, and I'm going to call that 000 mod. There, and save. And now I'm done with Olly. So I leave Olly, and now I'm going to just run that file. And so if I go to downloads, which is here, there's my 000 mod. So if I run that, it's going to ask me for launch codes. And when I give it a number, it's going to say, wow, you got it. Here's the result, is a J. So now I win. Whatever I put in, I win the game. So that's a way to make a modified file here. And now you have various challenges here. You can crack more of them, you can crack more of them. You can even get to the point where you're doing hundreds of them. And the original challenge, there were 65,000 of them you had to crack. They weren't all the same. and then you had to build some code out of all the responses and run that. But anyway, I got part of it here too. So anyway, there's various challenges there from EasyCTF. And that's the joy of Olly. So that stuff is fun to do, and we'll go through another one next time. And I think this is really the fun way to learn assembler, is to start cheating at Windows games. So let me save this.